Hi, in today's video we're going to be talking about discriminants, which are a really helpful tool for looking at quadratic equations and knowing how many solutions you're going to have, how many real solutions that you can have. Because it's possible to get a quadratic where you have imaginary solutions, and imaginary solutions refer to solutions with imaginary numbers, basically negative square roots. So the square root of -1 is what we call an imaginary number, right? Because there's no two numbers that you can multiply together the same time to get -1, right? -1 times -1 is +1. So the square root of -1, there's no number that can be that. So we call it imaginary, and we represent it with this little I here. And we want to know, when we're solving quadratics, are there any real solutions to this quadratic, right? Are there any solutions where we'll get real numbers as our solution? And most of the time this means how many solutions are there, because a lot of times they'll specify real solutions. And so you want to look at a quadratic and say, well, does it have real solutions or does it have no solutions? We can do this by looking at the discriminant. You don't have to factor, you don't have to use the quadratic formula. It's a nice simple thing. Basically, right, we're going to look at this, we have the whole quadratic formula, right? X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's a lot to do every single time. It is a lot, right? Well, if this were to be imaginary, right, that would basically mean this part, this square root part, would have to be less than 0. So if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, we're real. We have real solutions. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, well, then this is going to be negative, right? A square root's going to be negative, so this is imaginary. So I can just look at this b squared minus 4ac, right, whenever I'm looking at a quadratic, and say, okay, let me plug those values in. Is that greater than 0? Okay, it's real. Is that less than 0? Okay, it's imaginary. For example, right, if I was given something like x squared plus x minus 1 equals 0, does that have real solutions? Well, my b is just 1, so 1 squared minus 4 times a 1 in the a and a 1 in a c. So 1 minus 4, that's -3. I don't have any real solutions, so I would say no solutions or imaginary solutions, whichever your teacher prefers. Now you might be asking and saying, okay, well, if it's greater than 0, we're real. If it's less than 0, we're imaginary. What if this is equal to 0? What does that mean? Well, to understand what that means, we'll go back to the quadratic formula, right? If this whole thing is 0, then our x is just equal to -b over 2a. So what that essentially means is that if this is 0, we do have a real solution. We only have one solution, right? Basically, the two roots of our quadratic are the same. So we're going to ask something like, if this, negative turned out to be 2, our quadratic would be the same thing as x, it'd be a square, like x minus 2 squared, right? That's essentially what it would be. Right? So, if this is 0, we have a double root, or a square, right? We have a single solution that is squared to get a quadratic, right? If this is greater than 0, we have real solutions. We can solve that quadratic. If this is less than 0, we have imaginary solutions or no real solutions. So that's discriminants. It's a nice, quick, and easy check to see, hey, can I solve this quadratic? And it's really helpful to just whip out whenever you're given a problem that asks, is this, does it have no solutions? You want to say, oh, well, does it have no solutions? You just whip this thing out and solve it nice and fast. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a great day.